My 4-year-old son has terrible behavior problems. I finally told my wife about my past, and she's stating I made our son a sociopath. I, 34M, come from a family with a history of mental illness and unethical behavior patterns on both sides. My wife, 39F, is obsessing over that fact because our 4-year-old is showing extreme antisocial behaviors. She didn't know much about my family until 2 weeks ago. She also did not know about my previous criminal charges. I shared it all with her now in hopes of brainstorming a solution to help our son. Our kid was kicked out of kindergarten for biting other kids. Strangely enough, he plays well with the neighbors' children, and his company is sought after. At preschool, he does not want to share. He can hold a grudge and sulk for 3 days straight with no break. Incidents as small as running out of his favorite flavor of ice cream can set that off. He likes kicking anthills and crushing insects. I can best describe it as a strange and intentional fascination with putting others in discomfort or disturbing the balance of things. My wife has sobbed multiple times for hours in my arms about this situation. We don't know why he's doing any of this. We're trying to reach him in warm conversations, but he's playing his own game where we are fools. We were talking in bed one evening when our childhood behaviors came up. We wanted to know if we could ask our parents how they dealt with us. Up to that point, she thought we were both extremely well-adjusted, so what worked for us must be good. I decided to tell her about my past. The reason I hadn't done so earlier was because I was putting it all behind me. But I'm also very concerned for our son, and the filter came off without me realizing. As a child and up to my 20s, I also exhibited sociopathic traits. I remember searching other kids' backpacks and stealing money when I was 9. I'm not sure where I got the idea. At 25, my employer wanted to press charges against me for fraud. I'd lied about going to an Ivy League-level university when I didn't attend any, then proceeded to mismanage major projects while admittedly creating toxicity. There are many other incidents in between. For a few years, I lived under a completely assumed identity and false backstory for a reason I can't quite say, except the thrill of it. Lying has always come naturally to me as an amoral tool for navigating situations. My wife made a good point that my surroundings could have caused that behavior, but our son has had a very sheltered life. My Uncle Jeff is a sociopath. He's never treated people with respect and was jailed for fraud. My Aunt Kate is a psychopath whose 2 eldest children no longer speak to her. They report horrific abuse while growing up. That's my mom's side. My mother has APD. She has an extreme lack of empathy and a tendency to cause conflict. She would often talk behind her friends' backs to me when I was growing up. She always seeks control and lacks self-awareness. My mother has not sought a diagnosis because she is a religious fanatic who does not believe in mental illness. My dad seems rather normal. I'd say he's the most well-adjusted of every member of my family, immediate and extended. On my dad's side, 2 cousins suffer from psychosis and schizophrenia. Our culture is one where infidelity is frowned upon and tends to cause divorce, but 3 of my dad's 4 brothers have children out of wedlock. Maybe it's not hereditary and it's generational trauma. But I've worked hard to reverse my negative traits. For the past 2 weeks, she's come closer and closer to saying I betrayed her and our son is doomed. She joked about it at first, but that was her own way of lightening it in her mind. I could tell it was sitting heavily on her. We can't talk about anything without it leading back to my past or family history. She's able to tie the most unrelated details to it when we're watching a movie or taking a walk. We were doing the weekly shop when she tried to joke about me having a shoplifting gene. As it happens. Yes, I did have a shoplifting habit for a while as a schoolboy. That's something I'd kind of buried in my mind. I had that nostalgic ecstasy when you remember a period after forgetting it entirely for years. I thought we were carrying on with the chit-chat, so I started recounting the details as they came to me. She turned serious all of a sudden and said, "This is a serious issue and it's like she doesn't know who I am." She started saying our son is in serious trouble and needs help, and if she'd known, she could have sought help for him when he was extremely young, but she didn't because I never told her, and that was unfair to her and an evil thing to do. I lost my temper and screamed that she must not be smart to have married a sociopath and not realized all this while. Clearly, I've changed. And the whole thing seemed worth a look in the beginning, but now it seems like voodoo thinking to me. She hasn't spoken to me for hours. When I approach her, she faces another direction or tells me to get away. Am I the asshole here? Update. I need advice to resume control of my marriage ASAP. I'm currently at a loss.
My wife, 39F, will not speak to me, 34M, and I fear this might be difficult or impossible to get back from.
2 weeks ago, I told my wife that my family has a history of mental illness, antisocial behavior, and trouble with the law. I want to emphasize that I shared this information of my own accord when I could have kept it private. Somehow, that seems to be getting lost in her viewpoint. So now, she's making me out to be the bad guy for telling her things. So much for honesty. Basically, she pushed too far and insensitively on this issue, and I ended up screaming at her in the shop yesterday. She hasn't spoken to me since. The background is this. Our 4-year-old boy has been causing issues at home and preschool. He has been biting other kids. He laughs at others being in pain or discomfort. He likes kicking anthills and squashing bugs. My wife said he stares at their insides after crushing them, but I've personally not noticed that. Once, when another kid fell and started crying, my son's reaction was to go over and hit him. These behaviors are odd to me too, but I don't think they are very alarming. One incident with my son taking a knife from the kitchen and apparently threatening to stab my wife my wife has wept over this multiple times, and I've comforted her and assured her it will be okay. One evening 2 weeks ago, we were in bed talking about our own childhood problems. Hers were nothing concerning. Mine are worse, but she didn't know them. I didn't necessarily hide them so much as put them behind me. Given our son's potential condition and my intense desire for him not to follow the path I did for a while, I told her some details about my history. I was troublesome from childhood up to my 20s. An employer once wanted to press charges against me for fraud after I lied that I went to an Ivy League level university and was given projects I frankly was not equipped for. I mismanaged them, cost the company money and opportunity, and rubbed many colleagues the wrong way. That's when I was 25. At 9, I searched other kids' backpacks and stole money. I'm not sure why I did that, because I got some from my dad. I also spent a few years living under a false identity and history for no real reason than I guess the thrill of getting away with it. There are countless other incidents, so many that some come to me as long-forgotten flashes. Again, this is my past, and no longer who I am or how I think. It's all 100% behind me. My wife also asked about similar patterns in my family. On my dad's side, multiple individuals have schizophrenia, psychosis, and long-running issues with impulsive and manipulative behavior. On my mom's, one of her siblings is a known abuser and conflict monger who successfully alienated her 2 oldest kids to the point of no contact. Another is a convicted fraudster and adulterer with 3 kids by different women that each want nothing to do with him. She has a brother who died of some neurodegenerative disease I never knew specifically, but that's ages ago, and he's practically forgotten now. My maternal grandfather was known to be a troublemaker, but he's mellowed in his old age. And my mom shows many ASPD behaviors, and we're not in regular contact. My wife sounded a mixture of bemused and disturbed, but overall fine at the mention of these details. She was being quite jokey and a good spot about it, until she got serious and concluded this was a major risk factor for our son during the conversation from yesterday that caused the fallout. My question for you is, how do I get back in my wife's good graces or create an environment where she is receptive to me? I'm losing precious time. She's getting colder by the hour. The more solitude she has to craft her independent perception of me, the harder it will be to get back to our life of happiness. For context, she's been wanting us to learn an instrument together well enough to compose, a backyard re-landscaping to achieve a very specific aesthetic, a trip to visit her closest cousin who lives in France, an overhaul of our decor, an e-bike. It doesn't have to be anything extravagant, but I'm just adding that for personalization. Simple ideas are more than welcome too. How can I approach her so she doesn't turn aside or tell me to get away? What can I say exactly? Ideally, it shouldn't mean I'm on weaker footing throughout the discussion. Thank you for your suggestions. The more specific, the better. Update 2. The next day on a new subreddit titled, How Can I Tell If My Wife Is Trying to Flee with My Son? My, 34M, married life has imploded in the last few days. I have a feeling my wife, 39F, is planning to flee in the dead of night or when I'm not around. Someone suggested that idea and now I can't get it out of my head. It hurts, but I don't mind if she needs space. My concern is she will probably take our 4-year-old son, and I cannot allow that under any circumstances. She is an unfit parent to him. She hasn't spoken to me in 2 days. This is the first time she's sulked and brooded like this. Her friends and cousins are poisoning her against me as she's been on the phone a lot lately. I would ask her what she's planning directly, but I cannot be assertive at this time because the balance is very shaky. I also don't want to give her ideas or possibly rush her plan. If you can point me to stories of wives who fled their husbands similarly, that would help to spot patterns. Or you can tell me specific things that point to a person who's about to disappear. And if I'm sure she's planning to abduct our son, I want to be able to flee first so our kid is in my care. At the same time, I don't want to make that move wrongly as it would escalate the conflict. Long term, I would like us to be a happy family again. But this is a turbulent time and I need to secure some leverage, especially regarding our son. She has also proven unable to parent him effectively and will probably cause him permanent damage. It's in our son's best interests to be with me. Thanks for your answers. I consider this post inconclusive due to OP's account being suspended. OP keeps making new accounts to comment that this was all fake and a performance art piece.